Good evening, friends. Welcome to this weekly briefing in the virtual format. I will start with an update on the Vande Bharat mission. As on 23rd September, 15.42 lakh Indians have been repatriated through different modes of this mission. And as you would remember, we are presently operational in phase 6 of this mission, which has been ongoing since the 1st of September. As on 22nd September, 630 international flights and 142 feeder flights have been operated from 24 countries, reaching 24 airports across India, and they have repatriated an estimated 1,24,000 people. The sixth phase will continue to be operational till the 30th of this month. I would also like to mention the Air Suvidha digital platform, which has been made available for all arriving international passengers since the 8th of August. And this platform essentially allows for exemption from institutional quarantine for incoming passengers on the Vande Bharat mission flights. This service has been made available in response to a long pending demand of passengers for seeking exemption from institutional quarantine on the basis of their RT-PCR tests. It has helped to reduce passenger processing time on arrival. I also have a curtain raiser press statement on the upcoming virtual bilateral summit between India and Sri Lanka. You would have seen our press release yesterday. Now, this virtual bilateral summit is to be held between PM and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa on the 26th of September. It will be hosted by India. This virtual bilateral summit will be PM's first such virtual engagement with a neighboring country, and also PM Rajapaksa's first diplomatic engagement with a leader of a foreign country after he was sworn in as PM on the 9th of August. As you would know, India-Sri Lanka bilateral relations are marked by regular high-level exchanges, and such exchanges have provided momentum to mutual cooperation and ties, which are multidimensional in nature, and they cut across spheres such as commerce, security, defense, culture and tourism. PM has maintained regular interaction with both President and Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. The virtual bilateral summit is preceded by the state visits of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa to India in November 2019 and February 2020 respectively. Since then, these leaders have also kept in close touch and spoken to each other on telephone on several occasions, including in the context of cooperation to tackle the health and economic impact of the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic. You would recall that following the election victory of PM Mahinda Rajapaksa, PM was the first leader to congratulate Mr. Rajapaksa over telephone on the 6th of August. PM also sent congratulatory letters to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. And most recently, both President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa called PM on 17 September to wish him on his birthday. Earlier, on 27th May, PM had spoken to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa to congratulate him on having completed 50 years since first entering the Parliament of Sri Lanka. This virtual bilateral summit, which is going to be held under challenging circumstances posed by COVID-19 pandemic, testifies to the deep-rooted civilizational ties and shared heritage between the two neighboring countries. This is also a reflection of our neighborhood first policy as well as the Sagar doctrine. The virtual bilateral summit will give an opportunity to the two leaders to comprehensively review the broad framework of our bilateral relationship in the context of the time-tested friendly ties between the two countries, and it will also give a broad political direction for a strengthened and deepened collaborative partnership on key issues of mutual interest. So, this is on the upcoming India-Sri Lanka virtual bilateral summit. Now let us move to your questions. So Yatin, can you start please?
So the first questions is on Kerala gold smuggling related issues. Jomi Thomas from Malayalam Manorama, he has asked, what's MEA's position on import of holy books from UAE for distribution among the public? Are foreign diplomats allowed to engage in religious activities including distribution of religious books in India? Has UAE informed MEA about the plans to shut down their consulate in Trivandrum? Balagopal from Matrubhumi has asked, did the Ministry of External Affairs seek the formal explanation from the government of Kerala about the protocol violations in accepting aid from the UAE Red Crescent? If so, has the ministry received any reply from the state? Did the Custom Department seek clarification from the External Affairs Ministry for questioning UAE attaché Rashid Khamis Ali Musaikri with regard to his involvement in gold smuggling links?
Since the matter is presently under investigation, I will not be able to share specific details. You would recall that I had mentioned ministry is looking into other aspects like the MOU that has been mentioned in the question, and these aspects are being looked at from the legal angle. As and when there is an update, we will tell you.
Next question is from Suresh from Kantipur Express. There are reports that Nepal has requested Indian government to consider export restriction on onion. What's the latest update on this?
See, we are aware that many countries in the neighborhood import large quantities of onion from India, and we are in close consultation with other stakeholders and GOI. I understand a decision has been taken that shipments which have already been handed over to customs before the imposition of this export ban could be released for export, and in this regard some movement has already happened to some of our neighboring countries. We will continue to monitor the situation.
Nainima from the print has asked, Nepal is now planning to conduct a census in Kalapani Lipulekh region. What is India's reaction, and when is New Delhi planning to hold the FS level talks on the border issue? Similar question from Anish from UNI.
Nainima, I have already made our position clear on the boundary issue. I have nothing further to add at this stage.
Next set of question is on Gilgit-Baltistan. Siddhant from Vion has asked, how do you see calls in Pakistan for declaring Pakistan occupied Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan as 5th Pakistani province? Nainima from the print has asked, how is India viewing the moves taken by former Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to make a political comeback and developments around Gilgit-Baltistan? Shrinjoy from Times Now has asked, Pakistan is holding elections in the Gilgit area, which is Indian territory. Your comment please. Shailendra from News 18 has asked, पाकिस्तान गिलगिट बाल्टिस्तान को प्रोविंस के तौर पर घोषित करने वाला है, इस पे आपकी क्या प्रतिक्रिया है? साथ ही नवंबर में पाकिस्तान ऑक्यूपाइड कश्मीर में चुनाव की घोषणा भी कर चुका है, इस पर भी प्रतिक्रिया बताइए. सिमिलर क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम विजय लक्ष्मी फ्रॉम इंडिया टीवी.
We have seen the statements by the Pakistani leadership and media reports in this regard. Any action by Pakistan to alter the status of the militarily occupied so-called Gilgit-Baltistan has no legal basis whatsoever and is totally void ab initio. Our position has always been clear and consistent. The entire territories of the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh have been, are and would remain an integral part of India. Pakistan has no locus standi to comment on India's internal matters.
Madhurendra from News Nation has asked, पाकिस्तान में जारी अल्पसंख्यकों पर अत्याचार और सिख लड़की का हाल में हुए अपहरण मामले में भारत के कड़े रुख का क्या परिणाम सामने आया?
मधुरेंद्र जी, सिख लड़की के अपहरण के मामले में आपने देखा होगा कि सिख समुदाय में बेहद गुस्सा और चिंता है, और ये गुस्सा और चिंता जो है रिप्रेजेंटेशन के रूप में उन्होंने हम लोग को दिया. साथ साथ मंत्रालय ने सीनियर पाकिस्तानी डिप्लोमेट को समन करके एक स्ट्रॉन्ग प्रोटेस्ट लॉन्च किया, एक नोट वर्बल दिया, और आपको ज्ञात होगा कि ये पहली घटना नहीं है, इस तरह की घटनाएं होती आ रही हैं. और अब शायद कुछ खबरें हैं कि उस लड़की को अब रिहा कर दिया गया है. हमारी पाकिस्तान सरकार से हमने ये उनको कहा है कि उनको अल्पसंख्यकों की सुरक्षा के लिए हर तरह का जो भी ज़रूरी कदम है वो उठाना चाहिए और उनकी सुरक्षा जो है उसको सुनिश्चित करना चाहिए।
दीपक रंजन फ्रॉम पीटीआई भाषा हैज़ आस्क्ड, ऐसी खबरें आई है कि पाकिस्तान ने इस्लामाबाद में भारतीय उच्चायोग के वरिष्ठ राजनयिक को वीज़ा जारी करने से मना किया है। इस पर मंत्रालय की क्या प्रतिक्रिया है?
दीपक जी, पाकिस्तानी साइड को कुछ रिजर्वेशंस थी हमारे सीडीए डेजिग्नेट के बारे में और ये एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव इशू है, हम इसको हैंडल कर रहे हैं।
Huma from Financial Express has asked, what is the agenda of the India-Sri Lanka virtual summit?
Huma, I think I gave a detailed readout which broadly tells you what is the context of this summit and what is the agenda going to be.
Siddhant from Vion has asked, has India received Russian invitation for SCO BRICS meet in November? Ranjit Kumar from Rakshat News has asked, has Prime Minister Narendra Modi confirmed his participation in forthcoming SCO and BRICS summit?
We are in discussion with the Russian side to finalize a date for the summit and we'll make an announcement as per standard procedure.
Kamaljit from Aaj Tak has asked, how many Sikhs brought back from Afghanistan since lockdown? How does Government of India plan to help them?
Kamaljit, we have been receiving requests from Hindus and Sikhs in Afghanistan to grant permission to settle down in India, and these requests have specifically gone up after the attack in the Gurudwara in Kabul in March 2020. We see a targeted persecution of the minority community members by terrorists and their sponsors, and this is a matter of serious concern. Now, to ensure their safety and well-being, our mission in Kabul has been actively in contact with them, and they have facilitated their smooth arrival from Afghanistan despite the COVID-related restrictions. In terms of numbers, what I have is that so far 357 members of the minority community have arrived from Afghanistan to India since the lockdown, and the Indian Sikh community here is also assisting in making their stay comfortable in India.
Brahma Prakash from Z News has asked, जाकिर नाइक को लेकर खुफिया एजेंसियों के हवाले से नई जानकारी सामने आई है। जी न्यूज़ के पास इसके पुख्ता सबूत है कि वह मोबाइल ऐप और वीडियो लिंक के ज़रिए भारत में लगातार कट्टरता फैला रहा है। मलेशिया से जाकिर नाइक को वापस लाने की अभी क्या स्थिति है?
जाकिर नाइक के मामले में हम मलेशिया सरकार से संपर्क में हैं और उनके एक्सट्रेडिशन के लिए हम फॉलो अप कर रहे हैं।
मधुरेंद्र फ्रॉम न्यूज़ नेशन हैज़ आस्क्ड, कुलभूषण जाधव मामले में क्या अपडेट है?
मधुरेंद्र जी, कुलभूषण जाधव के मामले में हम कंटिन्यूसली काम कर रहे हैं इस केस में और पूरे प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं कि उनका सेफ रिटर्न यहाँ पे हो, और जैसा भी अपडेट होगा हम आपको इन्फॉर्म करेंगे।
Siddhant from Vion has asked, Turkey raided Kashmir once again. We have responded to, but it is for second year in a row Turkey has raided Kashmir. How majorly Turkey's action has impacted ties? Similar question has also been asked by Deepak Ranjan from PTI Pasha.
See, you would have seen the right of reply exercised by our permanent mission in New York, where we stated earlier that the remarks of the President of the Republic of Turkey on the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir constitutes a gross interference in India's internal affairs and are completely unacceptable. Turkey should learn to respect the sovereignty of other nations and reflect on its own policies more deeply. So this is what I have at this stage.
Huma from Financial Express has asked, on VBM, any updates, as many Indians are still stuck in Gulf region and other countries?
Huma, I just gave an update on the Vande Bharat mission and I have spelt out the numbers to you of the Indians who have been repatriated so far.
Gautam Lahiri has asked, latest status of air bubble travel agreement with Bangladesh and other countries in future, and what is the expected timeline?
See, we have offered air bubble arrangements to Bangladesh as we have offered to our other neighbors. We have something already with Maldives and Afghanistan. The matter is presently under discussion.
Siddhant from Vion has asked, Pakistan raised the issue of Jammu and Kashmir at CICA ministerial meeting and also referred to it indirectly at SAARC ministerial meeting. What is our reaction to that?
Siddhant, it is very typical of Pakistan to use such fora to raise bilateral and contentious issues which are against the principles of such organizations as well as against the spirit of these meetings. And I don't see anything else. I mean, what else can we expect of a country that indulges in cross-border terrorism as a part of its state policy?
Akhilesh Suman from Rajya Sabha TV has asked, EM has participated in SAARC ministers meeting. What is outcome and what was India's position on important issues?
Akhilesh ji, you would have seen the press release that we have issued a few hours back on this meeting. Now, just to flag some salient points, this was an informal meeting of the SAARC Council of Ministers, which has traditionally been held on the sidelines of the UNGA since 1997. And it was held in virtual mode with the participation of all SAARC leaders. There was a report from the Secretary General on the status of the regional cooperation since the last informal meeting in New York in September 2019. In the meeting, there was a review of regional efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, and in the country statements, participants appreciated the leadership of PM in convening the video conference of SAARC leaders on the 15th of March this year to take collaborative measures towards combating the COVID-19 pandemic in the region. In this context, EM in his intervention highlighted various measures taken by India as a follow-up to this video conference. He recalled that the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund for countries in the region, which was created following this initiative. In this fund, India has already committed $10 million and all other SAARC member states have also generously contributed to the fund. He also recalled that as a follow-up to this SAARC leaders video conference, meeting of health professionals, of trade officials and COVID-19 information exchange platform Coinex was done. There was also an initiative on foreign currency swap support and activation of the SAARC for food bank mechanism. EM reiterated India's continued commitment to assisting countries in the SAARC region in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is what I have by way of details of this meeting.
Next set of question is on line of actual control. Nainima from the print has asked, will Joint Secretary Navin Srivastava be part of the 7th round of senior commander level talks also? Has this become a norm now? Any idea when will it be held, since the joint statement said as soon as possible? Also, did India raise the issue of status quo ante during the meeting? Shailesh Kumar from National Defence has asked, what is the latest official update on standoff position in Eastern Ladakh post consensus reached between two countries after external affairs level talks and latest military commanders meeting? Is PLA de-escalating and going back from Indian territories? Srinjoy from Times Now has asked, what is the situation on ground post commanders meeting in Ladakh? दीपक रंजन फ्रॉम पीटीआई भाषा हैज आस्क्ड, लद्दाख गतिरोध के मुद्दे पर चीन और भारत के बीच ताज़ा वार्ता के क्या परिणाम सामने आए हैं? मानस फ्रॉम पीटीआई हैज आस्क्ड, हैज इंडिया ऑब्जर्व्ड any lowering of aggressive posturing by Chinese military in eastern Ladakh? Has there been military build-up by China along the LAC in Arunachal Pradesh? Is there any possibility of SA level talks in next couple of weeks? Similar questions from Madhurendra from News Nation and Shankar from India vs Disinfo.
See, as you are aware, the 6th meeting of the senior commanders of India and China took place on 21st of September in Moldova. This meeting took place in the backdrop of the meeting of the defense ministers of India and China in Moscow on the 4th of September, and also the meeting of the two foreign ministers on the 10th of September. You would recall that the two foreign ministers had reached an agreement that the two sides should continue the dialogue and quickly and comprehensively disengage in all the friction areas. The meeting of the senior commanders took place after nearly 50 days, and after this meeting the two sides have also issued a joint press release that you would have already seen. Now I would like to highlight that in this first joint press release after any senior commanders meeting, the press release reflects the stated commitment of both sides to disengage along the LAC. As we have pointed out earlier, disengagement is a complex process that requires redeployment of troops by each side towards their regular posts on their respective sides of the LAC. This would require mutually agreed reciprocal actions. Even as two sides work towards complete disengagement in all friction areas, it is at the same time also necessary to ensure stability on the ground. The latest senior commanders meeting should be seen in this overall context. The sixth meeting gave the senior commanders an opportunity to have candid and in-depth exchanges of views on stabilizing the situation along the LAC. The two sides have also decided to strengthen the ground communication to avoid any further misunderstandings and misjudgments, stop sending more troops to the front line, refrain from unilaterally changing the situation on the ground, and avoid taking any actions that may complicate the situation. The way ahead will be to refrain from making any attempts to unilaterally change the status quo while the two sides continue their discussions to achieve complete disengagement in all friction areas to ensure full restoration of peace and tranquility in the border areas. In this regard, the two sides have also decided to have the next meeting of the senior commanders at the earliest. In parallel, the next meeting of the WMCC is also likely to take place soon. So this is what I have on the LAC issue. Are there any further questions, Yatha?
No, sir.
Thank you. So this concludes the weekly briefing.